Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to session 16, where we will conclude our series of lessons on following the battles. What I'd like to make sure you have out is the think sheet we've been using with these lessons, and we've marked down what we've known so far. And if you could grab your blue and red crayons, pens, or colored pencils. So something we noticed where we last left off was that the war started up here, definitely in Boston, and branched out a little bit into Canada, New York, and Pennsylvania. Then it swept down south, right? The British were trying to catch the colonists off guard, thinking maybe the southern colonies weren't as prepared. They were a little bit right at first. They captured Savannah, Charleston, and Camden. However, once the Patriots came down and met up with them to be reinforcements for them, they started winning back some of those locations. So right now we're going to start where we left off at that part of the video.
After a brief rest, Greene, now reinforced, recrosses the Dan. On March 15th, at Guilford Courthouse, Greene finally faces the British, fighting them to a bloody standstill.
Before we get ahead of ourselves, it's good to notice that we just learned that the Patriots won at Guilford. So if we find and look for Guilford on our map, we had just left off here, it's just north of there. So I would take my blue pen and draw an arrow now going back up north and shade in this image to show the Patriots won at Guilford Courthouse. I might even want to mark that down here as well.
Cornwallis withdraws his battered and exhausted army toward Wilmington. Soon after, he marches north to Virginia, withdraws his battered and exhausted army toward Wilmington.
If you could notice right there how Wilmington has Cornwallis there, the red marker, that indicates that the British control Wilmington. So I want to take a minute to note that Wilmington, if we zoom in where we were in this region, Wilmington's just right over here. So we're in the Carolinas, the North and South Carolinas. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that the British have control over Wilmington. Something to maybe notice is how the Patriots have control on the inside of the land and the British have control on the coast. And a lot of that has to do with that's where their reinforcements come from, right? From the ships. They come from across the Atlantic River from England and then can support and supply reinforcements. Let's see how that works to continue as the war soon concludes.
Soon after, he marches north to Virginia, hoping to stop the flow of men and supplies into the southern colonies. With Cornwallis gone, Greene swiftly re-enters the Carolinas.
Did you see how the Camden flag turned blue? So what happened was the Patriots went back through their steps and reclaimed it. So on your map, it currently is red right here. So now we can come back and take a blue marker and show that they gained back that town.
Utah Springs, though a draw, Greene inflicts enough casualties to compel a British withdrawal to Charleston, where Greene pins them for the rest of the war.
And so again, now we have Greene, one of the generals in the Continental Army for the Patriots, is also taking back control over Charleston, at least holding them captive there. So I'm going to also circle that, and that's right down here. Right, so we had then the Patriots, we had some go up to the Guilford Courthouse, but we had others head back this way to try and take back over those cities.
Thwarted in the north and in the south, British strategists now try to attack the center. Cornwallis marches into Virginia and chases a Continental force before marching his weary army to Yorktown in
Okay, so now the middle, they're saying that Britain feels defeated in the north, they feel defeated in the south, so they're going in the middle. So this is the state of Virginia right here. And as you can see, there's that town of Yorktown. So we have the British now coming north to Yorktown.
By 1781, where he expects reinforcements by sea. On September 5th, the British and French fleets battle each other off the Virginia Capes. The French are victorious, and Cornwallis is cut off.
So because France had been starting to supply and support the Patriots, they used the advantage in the sea with their boats to actually take over the British fleet there, meaning two things. They retreated and left, so they didn't continue to come into America. And second, the soldiers at Yorktown with Cornwallis had no supplies coming in, which meant that you'll find the Patriots successful and victorious at Yorktown. I'm going to write that down here. And I realized I did not put Wilmington in here, so I'm going to put the Battle of Wilmington in. And we had the Battle of Yorktown. And again, using the different colors to signify who was victorious.
A combined American and French force marches south and lays siege to the British on September 26th. On October 14th, American and French units storm two British redoubts. Cornwallis realizes that there will be no reinforcements, no escape. He surrenders. More than 8,000 soldiers, about 1/4 of all British troops in the United States, are taken prisoner. News of Yorktown reaches London in late November 1781. In February 1782, the British Parliament adopts a resolution against further prosecution of offensive warfare on the continent of North America. The final Treaty of Peace is signed in September 1783. After 8 years of war, the longest war ever fought in North America, the United States win their independence. The American Revolution began the most important experiment the world has ever witnessed. Can people govern themselves? Can they treat each other as equals? Can liberty produce power? So far, through many rigorous tests, America has answered yes.
And that concludes this video that broke down the different battles that we were able to observe and understand the path for which. So while the scoreboard, if you will, looks very much even, it really came down to the fact that, as we mentioned, the Patriots were able to come back and take over the British then occupied cities. So they regained their strength there. They had already regained their strength in the north, but then it became this middle section of the colonies that was left sort of open and up in the air. But it really came in handy having the ocean here, that France sailed across the Atlantic Ocean just like Britain, but that they were able to use their reinforcements and also be supportive of the Patriots and concluding the war by cutting off the supplies for Britain, as well as defeating them in the water in that battle as well. So what I want to make sure you do is pause this video and just sort of catch up with any that you may have missed. And then this is something you can turn into your teacher just to show that for participation's sake. The last thing we learned and listened to in that video was about the Treaty of Paris, which was really the resolution of the American Revolution. And it seems confusing to say, why would the American Revolution treaty be signed in Paris, France? Well, again, remembering all of the support they provided us once the war began, with money and ammunition and support and help in the ocean with their their battleships, and helped to write that document. That will actually be tomorrow's lesson, so stay tuned to learn more about the Treaty of Paris.